We're glad you could join us. We're so glad you could join us today. If you can bear with me one moment, I'm going to make sure that we've got some attendees joining us. Welcome, welcome. I'm looking at a beautiful, cloudy, sunny kind of day this morning. Excited to be here. We're joining the Building Resilience While Avoiding Burnout. Yeah, and I'm going to give it a couple more minutes because we had about 28 people signed up and we have 11 that have joined us right now. Let's give people a little more time to hop in.
And if you would you tell us where you're joining us from this morning? It would be wonderful to know which parts of the state are being represented.
You can type that in the chat box,
Yes.
and we'll be using the chat box a lot today.
Bend, Klamath Falls, Portland, welcome. Another Portlander, yay. We're just glad that everyone can join us. You know, that's been one of the nice things about Zoom. I know Zoom can be really challenging for us because it's not the same as being in person. And yet look at this. I'd never be able to have tea with you all from all over the state. So we're really grateful that you're here. If you want, make sure you have something to drink and maybe a sheet of paper and something to write with. If you're interested in taking notes, we're going to get started in just a moment. Hello in Redmond. I don't know if you're getting any snow over there today. I see Mount Hood over here. We've had snow. It's been so beautiful to see the mountain all covered again.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started so that we can stay on track for our timing. Welcome. My name's Jenny Cavano, and I am the Program Director for Central Oregon Disability Support Network. And what brings me to this work and what gives me the ability to invite these amazing panelists today is that my eldest son, he's the eldest of 3 children, experiences a developmental disability. And you can see Christian on my slide. He's the guy in the red shirt in the middle with Lillard on his blazer shirt. And he actually is rocking this picture from Hawaii where he paid for his own airline ticket and accommodation on a huge goal that he had when he graduated high school, was to go on a family vacation and for him to pay his way. And the way he did that was by being employed in community. And so Christian has taught me what it is to be resilient. For absolutely, you know, we've gone through many obstacles and overcome lots of those through resilience. So I'm really excited that we get to talk about this because I think it's super important. So I have a few housekeeping rules for today I just want to go over. So we have you all muted right now, and we're going to use the chat box to ask questions, and there'll be times to interact, and then we will facilitate those questions throughout. There will be some interactive parts. So we are going to use the chat box, and Shauna is going to give us some more instruction about how we're going to do that a little bit later. We're going to be recording this training. So if you joined us a little after we started, we had that advertised, and it does record what is in the chat box. So we really appreciate just respecting that this is a safe environment. Today, if you are able to stay with us throughout the end of the training and have the link sent to you for our survey, we are going to have a drawing that we will do on Friday, and the winner will get a self-care kit. So let's launch a poll in a little bit, not right now. I think the gals want us to do that once they get started. And I'm going to introduce, without further ado, our guest speakers today. And I'm going to hand this over to Shauna.
Actually, it'll be to me. Thank you so much. That's fine. It's perfectly fine. Thank you and good morning. Thank you so much for coming. We are so grateful for your presence. We know that each of you have busy schedules. In this presentation, we hope to help you recall things that you already knew and learn things that you may not have known during this presentation. We have a fantastic group of people here today for the conclusion of our 3-part series. If you missed the first 2, you can still watch them on the Central Oregon Disability Support Network. Next, I'd like to do our land acknowledgement. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the original people of the land of which we live, work, and play. There are 9 confederated tribes here in Oregon. We'd like to acknowledge each tribe included in the confederated tribes as a whole, and also acknowledge those who continue to fight for recognition. I see you and I hear you. For the land I currently call home, I am sitting on or near the ancestral grounds of the Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, bands of the Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, and Molalla peoples. Now for the introduction for this marvelous panel. Today we are centering voices from the Black, Latino, and senior populations as we discuss recognizing burnout and working to limit its effects on our lives. My name is Melissa, and I am the daughter of Johnny, who is the daughter of Annie, who is the daughter of Gertrude. I'm also the proud owner of Inspire Bonus, where I advocate for radical self-care, wellness, food as medicine, good mental health as a life coach and speaker. I'm also a clinical social worker with a focus on severe and persistent mental illness. We also have Becky. Becky has lived in Southern Oregon for more than 40 years. She has 9 children, 18 grandchildren, 7 great-grandchildren, and has raised her teenage grandson since he was a baby. He experiences life with mental health challenges, and through difficult life circumstances, she has found herself getting burnt out at times. Her faith, family, and friends have helped her through. Next up on our panel, we have Yecenia. Yecenia is a proud Mexican-American woman who has lived in Klamath Falls since the age of 12. She has 2 wonderful children, an 8-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son. Her oldest was born with cerebral palsy and developmental delays. To get more help with the children, she and her husband decided to relocate and move in with her parents. And I'd also love to introduce Shauna. Shauna is the proud parent of 2 young adults who are part of the LGBTQ+ community. One of them experiences a neurodevelopmental disability and mental health challenges. Shauna has applied her lived experience and training to assist families like hers. She also leads workshops for professionals to better understand trauma and various perspectives. Shauna experiences physical disability herself and knows self-care is vital for advocates. Again, welcoming you into this space, and I'd like to acknowledge the space agreement. So we know life is hectic. If it's not hectic, can you give me some tips? And if you are attending in the midst of your day, thank you so much for being here. In this space, we hope that each of you would know, and we invite each of you to allow grace for yourself and for others. We're all only human. Please know that kids and pets are welcome. So if your little one, whether it's your baby or your fur baby, wants to join, go ahead and let them. Engage as you wish. You can chat up a storm in the chat box, or you can be quiet as a mouse, whatever pleases you right now. Practice self-care. Please stand up, drink some water, take care of yourself, grab a cup of tea. I already have one sitting next to me. And last but not least, if you see something you identify with or simply love, use the little plus symbols to agree in the chat box. So some of you may not know what burnout is, but I'm guessing you've probably experienced it. So burnout is a state of exhaustion. It's exhaustion in all parts of your existence that is caused by prolonged and excessive stress. It causes fatigue, a lack of motivation, and a decreased interest in things that you normally love. It can impact each and every part of your life. Quite frankly, it doesn't feel good. You might feel angry, tired, or like a potato. It presents differently for different people. We're going to be conducting a poll here, and we hope that you will participate. Pick the answer or answers that suit you best. We'd like to know, have you experienced burnout? Identify the signs of burnout, develop strategies to acknowledge it. Excuse me. Develop coping strategies, acknowledge when help is needed, and wildly celebrate victories. Yecenia, can you tell us more about who is vulnerable to burnout?
Of course. So let's look at who. You know that parent, that picture perfect parent that always looks composed when dropping off their child at school? They can experience burnout. Employed people, maybe they have too many duties. Or a yes person like me. My name's Yecenia, and goes with my name. I'm the yes girl. And it's really hard to say no sometimes, which can cause burnout. Siblings, can't even say much right now. We expect too much from them, and especially during these times. Our children are experiencing so much burnout. Sometimes I have to ask my 8-year-old daughter to help with her brother, and then she has school responsibilities, home responsibilities. There's so much things that they can experience burnout. We also have grandparents, teachers. We can't say enough right now. Teachers are struggling and are experiencing that. Humans, every race and ethnicity, each gender and sexuality. This year has been really tough for a lot of us. So everyone is vulnerable except psychopaths. Now, Shauna, can you go over the poll we just took?
Yes, I can. So when you look at our results, I'm going to go ahead and share them real quick. You can see that that burnout is common. It happens even for those of us on this call, and it isn't a sign of a weak person. It's not a sign of a person who has a lot of issues or that there's something wrong with them. It's just not having the right supports for the extreme responsibilities on someone. So, and that can happen to us whether, you know, we are a parent or we don't have children, or if we're a grandparent of so many kids like you, Becky, with all your grandchildren and all that. When you visualize burnout, Becky, what do you see?
When I envision burnout, I remember when my grandson was 6 and my dad came to stay for a week and ended up staying a whole year. A few weeks into the stay, he was given just a few days to live and needed 24/7 care. Life outside my home ended. I did have some support from hospice, but his dementia was difficult to deal with. In his confusion, he became jealous of affection between me and my 6-year-old grandson. I had to keep them separated. Keeping my grandson safe became the priority. My caregiving must have been good enough because after a year, he was ready to go home. I had to make a decision. I was torn between being the dutiful daughter and the dutiful grandma turned mom. I was burnt out. Circumstances leading to burnout can be varied. Unemployment, divorce, chronic illness, ongoing challenges of life with not enough supports. I invite you to chat now on how it shows up in your body and your emotions. Shauna, would you share some symptoms of burnout?
Yes, thank you so much, Becky, for sharing, because it is, it can be challenging when we have, we're caregiving not only our parents, but also our children or grandchildren. So when we experience burnout, we can be cynical, easily irritated. And we're going to talk about that from a brain perspective further on down our talk. it may reduce our creativity and our performance. And not only does it decrease our performance, but even if you are performing at your usual level, you may feel less effective. It may be hard to concentrate. This is something that really affects your outlook on life, so much so that you may even look in the mirror and not even recognize yourself. Or maybe you feel like you're just going on autopilot. It can be so, so challenging. Melissa, can you tell us more about it?
Of course, Shauna, thank you. Sometimes you could also notice a change in sleeping habits. You might be sleeping more or less, and the time it takes for you to fall asleep may have increased. We call that sleep latency. And we all know that if you experience that, it can be frustrating. Also, you can experience physical pain. You may feel like your body hurts more. It could be headaches, stomach aches, almost anything. Areas of your body that are generally fine just start to hurt, especially if you hold tension generally in those areas like your muscles or your jaws, your shoulders, or your neck. We can also experience emotional and physical fatigue. So you're not exactly sleepy, you're just you start to feel exhausted by almost anything. Activities that are generally fun and exciting become burdensome. Talking to your best friend, while it's usually just a joy and a pleasure, now becomes a chore. Yecenia, you have additional thoughts on this, correct?
Yeah, let's look at some telltale signs that maybe others see from us. So one of my biggest signs of burnout is I don't eat all day. And I love food, and I mean, I love food. So unless I'm really, really sick, I'm always eating. However, when I am to that level of burned out, I won't eat. And my family will notice because they'll bring me a plate of food because I'm either working or doing something. They'll bring me the plate, and a few hours later, I haven't even touched the food. So they'll know immediately, oh, she's already at that burnout. But some people, it's limited water consumption. Maybe they just don't drink anything. Have you ever had like a stomach pain where it's just like you're just so stressed, you have gastrointestinal distress? Withdrawals and disconnections. Another thing is, anybody will ask me a simple question, how's your day? And I start getting emotional. I start withdrawing and disconnecting from my normal self and start getting to another it's emotions. It can look different for everyone, and that's one of the things that's really hard. But your body and others will see those telltale signs, especially those who love you. But generally, we all have some signs that are visible, and others when we're headed to burnout. Melissa, can you tell us what your telltale sign is?
Sure can. Yesenia, you stop eating, I start cleaning when cleaning is not needed. People, we're talking about spring cleaning regardless of the season. So I'm scrubbing, cleaning baseboards, washing walls, taking an old toothbrush to the grout, and cleaning off ceiling fans. So what are the other symptoms of too much stress? It can impact your mental and your physical health. You can't think that I was too healthy taking those toothbrushes to the grout when I wasn't necessarily needing it. After a long day, have you ever experienced a headache? You consumed enough water, you may not even be prone to headaches, but you feel headaches or the muscle pain. Too much stress can also lead to fertility challenges in both men and women. Becky, I know you have something to say regarding mental health and stress as well.
Sure. Overstimulation can be a definite sign. Sometimes we unknowingly put ourselves in places or situations that will end up causing a meltdown of sorts. For instance, some stores have lighting that messes with your brain. Couple that with the chaos of crowds rushing around, it can tip you over the top, especially when you're already struggling with any kind of mental health issues. For instance, when my sister goes into one of those big stores, she gives her kids lists and baskets so they can go and do all the shopping while she goes into the salon for a manicure or a haircut. She knows what would happen if she puts herself in the middle of all that chaos. She must be vigilant. Shauna, you have some thoughts about burnout and the brain.
And if, like you said, Becky, if you experience mental health challenges and you have burnout on top of it, it can be a really hard time for crisis. So one of the things that it can be really helpful is understanding how the brain works. So this is from Dan Siegel's hand model of the brain. So if you've seen this before, you know it's a good one. So what this represents is this is the brain and this is the spinal cord plus the vagus nerve. And what happens is it comes up into the brain. So this is the amygdala and the hippocampus. This is the limbic part of your brain. That controls your emotions. It controls the lower brainstem controls your heart rate, your digestive processes, that sort of thing. And then this is the amygdala is where the fear comes in. It processes the fear part. And then we've got emotions. So usually that is under control of what we call our cortex. And our cortex helps make sense of all the information coming up in there. Now, one of the things that's super helpful to know is the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex is over the top of this subcortical system, and those are big words. But what it basically does is it helps control that. So when you're hangry or you're lonely or you're tired, it can help you say, you know what, you're going to eat in just a few minutes, or we're taking a bathroom stop in about 10 more miles. So just hold, just hold on, you're going to be okay. The thing is, if we don't have that part online, we flip our lid. And this part, the emotional part, the part that's not rational and thinking, this part of your brain takes over, which if you're happy, hey, not so bad. But if you're having a really hard time and a really challenging time, then it can cause a lot of chaos. So what we want to do is we want to know where we are so that if we are feeling like flipping our lid, we can do those skills and those tools that we have in our tool chest to help us regulate. But if you're feeling burnt out, your lid is probably like this all the time. It's about ready to flip. So Melissa, you're going to help us by leading us in some breath work.
Yes, thank you, Shauna. Let's get some breath work in. If it feels safe for you to do so, and if you wish, I invite you to close your eyes, relax your jaw, your forehead, your shoulders, loosen that neck. And if you're holding tension any place in your body, try to let it go. Place your feet flat on the floor. Allow your body to be fully supported by wherever you are sitting. Let the chair, couch, or floor support every ounce of your weight. We're going to do some breathing for about 2 minutes. So I invite you to take a deep inhalation through your nose. And if it's possible for you, hold it for 2 seconds and then exhale it out of your mouth. Let's try a few together. If you notice tension, try to release it. Let's take a few more together. Two more. Fantastic. Becky, I know you also have some stellar ideas.
Sure, there are so many activities we can do to relieve stress. Here are some of our favorites: reading books or talking to friends on the phone, having a pet available just to pet and to love on, walking in nature, knitting, crocheting, putting puzzles together. I really love that one. Unplugging your computer or any of your electronics and just sitting around and maybe journaling, writing things down as they come out of you is very helpful for relieving stress. And Yesenia, sometimes it is about not doing anything at all. Oh, right?
Correct, Becky. For me, it's to unplug. I realized that the most cause of stress for me is my phone and the computer. So to turn off the phone and computer and spend time with the kids or watch a movie or just absolutely do nothing helps me so much. It's my natural stress reliever. Thankfully, I could just press a button and it's gone for a little bit. Now, I mentioned before that when I'm at burnout, I don't eat at all. But when I'm really stressed, now there's the difference between I'm getting higher up there, but when I'm stressed, food is another natural, food is my stress reliever. Fortunately, I go for the junk food. However, there is natural stress relievers with food. Melissa, you have some food recommendations that are not only delicious, but are also good natural stress relievers, correct?
Yes, thank you, Yesenia. You may have heard me mention food in our prior sessions, or if you're my friend, you've probably heard me talk about it. But let me remind you, it can be a powerful tool in relation to helping you relieve stress and avoid burnout. So, different types of food can be used to help calm down the mind and the body. Don't worry, I won't bore you with reviewing all the foods on this list, but here are a few to consider a bit more in depth. So generally, when we think of oats or oatmeal, we think of eating it in the morning, but actually oats are high in tryptophan, and tryptophan converts into serotonin, and we all know serotonin. Dark chocolate is rich in magnesium, which helps to relax muscles. I wish it was also applicable to milk chocolate. It also boosts serotonin as well. Wild salmon is so nutrient rich. It contains vitamins and fatty acids that are beneficial to reducing anxiety and increasing brain health. So while food is tasty and we've all discussed the symptoms of our own burnout and what other folks can see in us, I'd also like to acknowledge that we are currently living in the era of COVID-19. So in this presentation, this portion of the presentation, we're going to do a grief ritual. Shauna is going to light candles eventually, not just yet, but we're all going through something right now. We're all in the same storm, even if we're not in the same boat. Some of us may feel like we're on a rickety tugboat, and others might feel like you're cruising along on a fantastic 100-foot yacht. But everybody's in the same storm. Everyone's life has shifted. We wear masks now. Many of us are working from home and educating children from home. And there's a reduced ability to engage with the most beloved people you have in your world. It is challenging, and it's a massive shift from a mere year ago. Inside of the US, we haven't seen a pandemic of this capacity in about a century, meaning that it's unlikely that you, your parents, or your parents' parents can tell you exactly what to expect or how to navigate in this seemingly brand new world. Different schools of thought say there's different stages of grief. Some say 5, some say 7, a few even say 9. And they're not linear by any means. Some of these include denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, reconstruction, and guilt. Does that sound familiar in the midst of COVID-19? Caitlin Curtis noted that she conducted a grief ritual with her son. And while this is not my culture, I believe the process is beautiful, worthy of consideration, and she invited others to join her. So Shauna will light 3 candles. These 3 candles, these 3 candles acknowledge the grief and mourning you may be experiencing. I invite you to consider in your mind, or even write down on a notebook, what you may be mourning or grieving in your life right now. Let's take some time to reflect. Thank you. I hope that was enough time for you to write down or think of 3 different things that you may be grieving right now or mourning right now in the era of COVID-19. Right now, I'm going to invite Shauna and all of us to blow out these candles. Let's count down. 3, 2, 1. Now, as we blow those candles out, we're going to work to light them anew, this time with a new focus and a resolute stance and gratitude and joy. So I invite you in this space to chat, write, or think of 3 things that you hold joy and gratitude for right now.
As we see, CODSN, my family, my health, my friends, Ashley, my health and family. I put technology, being able to connect with my family still. Jennifer, our health, daycare, my cats. Those are wonderful things that we are still grateful for during these times. I'm actually also grateful for my for the teachers. I know this is really hard time for a lot of people, and sometimes we look at the things that are hard, but I'm also looking at how much time and how much effort they put into it, and it's still not ideal. But Becky, speaking of that, would you give us a little bit of example of how the school has been working for you when we're working with virtual right now, that everything's done virtual work and education?
Well, when the pandemic first hit and the schools closed, my grandson was just coming home, but I was unable to register him for school as the schools closed for registration. I couldn't get any materials or a Chromebook or even a lesson plan. I had to figure out what to teach and adapt it to what I thought he might need. I was appalled at what he had not already been taught. So we were playing catch up for 8 months while I was still trying to get him in the school system. I didn't give up, though. We just kept trying. He is now in the school he wanted to be in. Persevere. Yesenia, you have done distance learning with your kids too. What do you think?
Thank you, Becky. At first, I was super excited. The first week went great. maybe a little too great. My daughter's in 2nd grade and she was finishing school and her assignments in less than an hour. And I wanted her to do more. So I subscribed her to like 10 different online sites. And then my son is in 4th grade and he gets special education. The first week we all met and we all agreed as a team, 2 daily 30-minute one-on-one sessions was perfect. Well, guess what? We were in the honeymoon stage. The next week, it was a complete disaster. My daughter had to have morning class, math class, reading class, music. My son's team wanted to add more classes. And on top of that, I was working from home and having my own meetings. We were all getting frustrated. At first, I thought I could do it all. I finally had to talk to everyone and say, I can't. This is way too much. We were all burned out. And it's okay to wave the white flag and say, this isn't working. It has been months now, and we're still working as a team together and adjusting to our schedules. But it's okay to reach out to teachers, to staff, and say, I need some help because this is not working out. Melissa, you and your wife have been affected with virtual work, correct?
Yes, we have both shifted to working from home. So I've been home since March, and my wife has been home since April. And in this time period, we've noticed some differences between us. So I'm what's called an ambivert, which is a mix of an intro and extrovert. Well, my wife is an extrovert. So for her, it's taken a lot more to get used to working from home. She's been climbing there she goes, she's climbing the walls again. So it's taken a while to adjust to life from home. So it meant that we had to have a mindset shift. And that focus became, we are keeping ourselves and our families as safe as we possibly can. We still miss our friends and family. My wife's family is out of state and she hasn't been able to see them. And I know that weighs on her. I haven't been able to see the latest addition to my own family. I have a brand new little cousin and I have not seen her. But we're choosing to separate now so we can gather later. In the space of working from home, one thing that I've noticed, it's really bad with myself, is that I haven't been great with setting work boundaries. I haven't been taking lunches. I haven't been taking breaks. Don't be like me. Take breaks, stand up, go drink some water, take care of yourself. You can't give from an empty cup. And then remember that you're learning to navigate in a brand new way. Shauna, I believe you have even more to add here.
Yeah, these tips that you wrote up here, Melissa, are so important. In addition to the plans for breaks and off time, it's really important for our brains to understand when things are over. And so it can be as simple as turning your computer off, even if you use that laptop for Netflix later on in the day. If you can just turn it off at the end of work and walk away from it is helpful. Some people will put like a towel or something over their monitor so that they know that it's a different time for the day. And it can be hard, and know that we will have times, especially when we are feeling burnt out, that it's harder to do these things. And yet the more you implement these boundaries and the more that you really get a plan for what you're doing, it can be really helpful. So when we're talking about burnout, it didn't happen overnight. So they say it's hard to turn a cruise ship around once that momentum gets going. And so if you're feeling burnt out today, if you're feeling just like it's just so hard to get up in the morning and it's hard to be interested in the work, or perhaps even interested in your children or your friends or things that have brought you joy before, know that you can make a plan. And this is when it's the hardest time to do it, right? When your lid is partially flipped or flipped. But if you set your mind to it, if you're in a job that's causing you hardship and grief, start working on your resume. and perhaps even reach out to someone and share with them what's going on. If you're in a romantic relationship and you and your partner are having a hard time during quarantine, consider couples counseling, or perhaps even listening to a podcast together that might be about improving relationships. If your children, or if you're having a challenge because it's hard to get a break, it's hard to get away, do everything you can to try to get some respite for yourself. The last Wellness Wednesday, we spoke about natural supports. And if you didn't join us then, please go back and review that. We had some great ideas for finding people and ways that you might be able to introduce that support. So the other thing is your health. And I think they call it the quarantine 19, instead of the freshman 15, where you've all put on a little bit of stress eating. And maybe it's opposite for you. Maybe you have lost weight because you're so stressed out and you aren't eating. But if it's for your health, think of one or two things that you might be able to do. So it might be unplugging your phone for a couple hours each week. I have a friend who puts they put their phones on airplane. Well, they also put themselves on airplane. And so that means they unplug from all screens, from Netflix or Hulu or Amazon. They turn their phone off and they just are in their physical space. So I encourage you to just create that list or two and talk to your friends, reach out. We are all in this together. I love this picture because as a parent of a child who experiences special health needs, we would have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, D, all the way through Z, because you never know what's going to come up. And if you plan for it, a friend of mine and I have a joke that if you make the plan, it's Murphy's Law, then you won't have to use it. So there's also some of that in there too. And if you need help making those plans, if you need help, there is help out there. You're welcome to actually reach out to each of us. We will have our email addresses at the end. But we also want to acknowledge that there are some situations that you can't resilience your way out of. It's past just reaching out for a little bit of help. You may feel like this person who's in the bottom of this cave who can look up and see where they want to be, and yet they don't see an elevator and they don't see a ladder and they don't see the way. And I know in my life, there have been times where I have felt this way. And when you're feeling burnt out and you feel this way, it's like, you don't have that creativity. It may be hard to come up with your own ideas and plans, but know that some situations do require big and uncomfortable decisions. And if that's you today, know that you aren't alone. Even as Melissa said, we are all in the same storm. We may not be in the same boat, but we are there. And so I encourage you to reach out, and we will have some helpful resources. Perhaps you're in an interpersonal violence situation and you need support around that. Please reach out and get help for that. So we want to talk, I'm sorry, Becky, you had something that you wanted to add. Go ahead. Oh, Becky, you're on mute right now. Thank you.
Yeah, so one of the things that I do is recognize my priorities and build boundaries. I am not a computer person, but running a nonprofit makes a computer very much part of my life. But it never seems to fail. When I'm in a hurry, the computer won't talk to the printer. I see messages like, busy, try later, or printer offline, or you need the internet to do that. Or maybe printer in error. OMG, I just want to throw them both out the door. Then I noticed the dog getting ready to welcome my great granddaughter at the door. I set aside the stress of the computer and focus on what is important. We may have to make some decisions and take action. Yecenia, you have had to do this.
Yes, thank you, Becky. I've had some, and this is going back to the slide, the previous slide, but I've had some things as well. Time management is my biggest struggle, and I procrastinate and I overwhelm myself. I usually have tons of things I need to do, and I always say to myself, it's all right. I don't need to write it down. It's in here. But guess what? I typically forget, and then I remember at 3 in the morning when there's absolutely nothing I can do. So I recommend people write your things down, write your list. If it's even something so small, write it down. I have a tendency of losing my keys because I keep saying to myself, I won't forget where I put them at. But I do know there's sometimes solutions that it's bigger and uncomfortable decisions that we have to make. So Becky, you have an example on this one that goes to the next slide.
Yes, so one of the hardest things that I ever had to do was to place my grandson in a residential treatment center in Portland, in the Portland area, far, far from home. I stayed with my granddaughter in Vancouver and drove back and forth into Portland every day to be part of the treatment plan. We had never been apart, and he would not sleep for the first 2 weeks. He ended up in OSHU with pneumonia, and he also ended up at Dornbecker's with some stomach issues. I thought we would be there a week, maybe two, but after 6 months, I was done, and we headed home. I can be a loving grandma, but I am not a doctor, and he needed professional help that was above my capabilities.
You know, I already discussed a little bit of those situations that can be like that, but if you're not safe in your home, there's resources here, and please reach out and get help. So the Oregon Coalition can help with that. We do have Lines for Life. I invite each of you on this call, if you have a cell phone near you, will you please take out your phone and with me put in Lines for Life, which is the number 1-800-273-8255. Again, that's 1-800-273-8255. Now, this is an important thing to have because if you're in crisis, any kind of crisis, or you're with someone in crisis, please reach out and get that help. They will be able to give you some resources and help in that situation. Another one I wanted to, there's some other resources here that are listed, and there's
Shauna?
reach out. Yes.
I'm sorry. We don't see that slide.
Oh, I'm
There
sorry.
It's all right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So there's a lot of different resources here. So there's the Racial Equity Support Line that is staffed by people of color who understand what it's like to go through the microaggressions and macroaggressions and just the day in, day out of what people of color face. There's the Utopia PDX. One of the things about being on Zoom is that it's more accessible to everyone. So with the Pacific Islanders, then there's the Senior Loneliness Line as well. So if you're lonely and you want to talk to someone, you can give them a call. And then Reach Out Oregon also is the one that is, it's staffed by family members who have kids with mental health challenges. So the last one I want to point out is this pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. So if you are just at your wit's end, call this number, 1-800-846-8517, and there's someone there to talk. So let me see. So we are so grateful that you joined us today. And I invite you, if you are not yet a member of CODSN, which is this wonderful free thing. They will just sign up and get their newsletter. It's great. And you'll be kept in the loop on some really amazing opportunities. Right now, there's some grant opportunities there, as well as behavioral trainings. Please follow Melissa. She's on Instagram at Inspired Boldness, or on Facebook with Inspired Boldness. And I tell you, her Instagram has the best sayings. Like, so one of the ones I love says, sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, and lose is crossed out and says learn. So I think that that's really wonderful. And then we have So we have my website there as well. So you can keep track of that. And I just would like everybody to have an opportunity. If you have any questions right now, please feel free to put them in the chat. If you have any comments, I know as I'm looking back through our chat, we had folks who talked about how they experienced burnout and stress. And there was some about stress eating and headaches and I just think it's so interesting how we are all very similar together. There's even someone like you, Melissa, who cleans when they're stressed out. But I just invite you, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and put them in the chat. We've got a minute right now. Okay, so I am seeing It's Amazing. Thank you. Before we go, each one of us, I can't say thank you enough to Melissa and Yecenia and Becky, and also to the Central Oregon Disability Support Network for hosting us with Wellness Wednesdays. It's been a complete joy to be with you and to encourage you in your self-care, encourage you in grace for yourself and grace for others. I really appreciate the time that you've spent with us today. And I just want you to remember that this will come to an end. My mom always says this too shall pass. And so even though we don't know when it's going to happen, keep loving on your loved ones, keep practicing self-care, and be resilient and persevere. And on those days that you need a good cry and a mental health day, please take it. And then the next day, hopefully you'll be able to get up and keep trying again. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Becky. Becky, do you have any thoughts for us?
Yes, I do. At age 71, I have spent a significant amount of time on the edge. But as one ages, you learn to recognize when you are edging toward the cliffs of burnout, and you have to take some deep breaths and a few steps back as to recalculate where you are headed. I recheck my focus to be sure that this is the best path and the one that will be the most positive and effective in the lives of others. It is easy to get stranded on the island of burnout, so we must be constantly checking our pathway to make sure we haven't detoured onto dangerous cliffs. Yesenia?
Thank you, Becky. I've learned so much in this last three webinars that it's amazing. And I think from all the three that we've done, my biggest thing is don't be afraid to reach out. My family and I moved with my parents for help, and it was okay. If you have children who experience disabilities, you can reach out to Central Oregon Disability Support Network. We have a wonderful website, but we also offer wonderful trainings, support groups, and family fun events. It gives you a chance to connect with others experiencing the same things as you are. But if you don't have a child with disabilities, there's also other support groups. We're in that era right now that everything's done online. And the nice thing about that is that there's other interests. If you like puzzles, knitting, if you want a book club, there's so many things where you can actually join and be able to reach out. So that's a way to help build resilience and keep you from burning out. Melissa.
Thank you, Yecenia. It's been a pleasure working with each one of you on this panel. Thank you for every single person that has attended our sessions. I am so grateful to the Central Oregon Disability Support Network. I hope each of you present take the time to engage in self-care, set and maintain boundaries, reduce stress, avoid burnout, eat good food, acknowledge the discomfort and fear, and face it. You are not alone. As almost everything is virtual, like Yecenia mentioned, you don't even need to stay in your state for support groups. Self-care is not selfish. Always remember that you cannot give from an empty cup. So for everyone present, I invite you to be well, be bold, be brave, and be inspired. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. Thanks, panel. Awesome. We'll say goodbye. Thanks for sharing the last hour with us.
Jenny, big shout out to you for all your tech support. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.